This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
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 Welcome back to Resonance. I'm Mike Ferrell, joined by Randy Harrington, the professor, and Steve Azar, lovingly known as Gilligan. And I get to be skipper. So welcome back. Season 2. We're rolling along here already in January. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what leaders tolerate and what that teaches people. And so to kind of think about that, you know, a lot of times as leaders, we have a tendency to tolerate things that we probably shouldn't. And when we talk about culture, and Randy, I know you've done a lot of work in this area. When we talk about culture, a lot of times culture isn't developed by mission statements and posters on walls and all that kind of stuff. It's developed by the behaviors and the actions that are happening within the organization.
Absolutely.
And when leaders tolerate bad behavior, when they tolerate lack of follow through, when they tolerate some of these things that are negative to the organization, they don't realize it, but they're really building that type of culture. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to you, Randy, and talk about that.
Sure. We can begin with a very simple but powerful concept, and that is that you cannot not communicate. So if you've been married for more than 11 minutes, you've had the experience of having your spouse suddenly stop communicating with you. And so you're driving and all of a sudden it's like, well, I think we're going to have a good time at the thing, and nothing. Well, nothing. It's like, okay, obviously she ain't saying anything to me, but she is saying volumes to me because she ain't saying anything to me. So you cannot not communicate. Not communicating is a form of communication. And in the very same sense, we can say that you cannot not have culture. You have a culture in your organization, and the culture is the accumulation of behaviors, patterns, and values that everybody treats as normal. And you can easily understand culture by saying, well, that's the way it is around here. You know, when you can, whatever that is, that's the way it is around here. Oh, yeah, well, we never clean up really well because that's the way it is around here. Oh, yeah, we never really finish our projects because that's the way it is around here. So you can have all kinds of negative associations with culture as much as you can have positive associations with culture. But we begin with this idea that, to get back to what you just said, is that what the leader does or does not do is being understood and seen by everybody. And they are taking both conscious and subconscious notes about what's okay. A simple thing might be the way you dress when you go to work. I tend to be a dress down kind of guy. I tend to like my blue jeans. I don't think I've worn a tie in 30 years, and I'm pretty proud of that fact. But people are going to follow that, and they're going to go, oh, well, if he can get away with that, then maybe I can go in my pajamas to work, and that would be okay too. So no matter what you do, they're going to be paying attention to it, and they're going to be using it as a guide. So there you go. I mean, this is it. So what the leader tolerates is what is going to become the expectation and the norm. And there's just no way around it. Another way to think about this, and then I'm going to kick it over to you, Steve, is this idea that whatever the leader pays attention to will improve. Okay. But the leader can't pay attention to everything all the time. So whatever the leader is going to look at, that's going to get a little bit better, but everything the leader isn't looking at is going to begin to decline. And so that is the challenge there. You can't not communicate. Culture is going to happen whether you like it or not. And when the leader is trying to focus on everything, they're probably not doing a good job. When the leader's only focusing on one thing, they're probably not doing a good job. So it's, how do we find that balance in there to create a normal, vibrant culture?
Yeah.
It's like, and I would think the same thing is true when you're out there starting to crank up a song. You know, it's got to be
Well,
When you walk out on that stage, something is being said.
Well, it starts before that. It's all the off time, the time you're together. So you got to imagine this: you put
Yeah.
a bunch of guys together in a tube that's 40-foot long or whatever tour buses are, and I'm in the back hiding in my own room and space, and they're all living together, right? Bunks, and then you got the big living space in the front and all that. So there's a lot of stuff during those periods I didn't know what was going on, but you can imagine putting guys together that didn't know each other, and all of a sudden they're having to hang out like they're living in a small home together and coexist and get along. So that was always, it wasn't as difficult, but there were always these little bitty things that gnawed at each person about the other person. And I would eventually hear about it. So I would tolerate it to a certain point, hoping that it would go away. But sometimes it didn't go away. But I got to tell you, from my viewpoint, things look so small and trite, what we were talking about. I felt like we were a little bit back in, just getting into 7th or 8th grade. And I was going like, I can't believe I'm having to deal with this and why. But then I'd have to back up and go, how am I going to explain?
Why is he touching me? He keeps touching me.
Right. Exactly.
He keeps moving my stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. So think about it, guys. I mean, you're in a tube together, riding with a bunch of wheels on it, and you're riding down the interstate. So you're sharing the same TVs, the same everything and all that. Only way you can get away is go into your bunk, which has your own TV. And it's really nice, but you have to lay down to do it, right? So I got to tell you, there's been so many times in my career where you're talking about stepping up and having to be the leader over things that didn't matter and things that did matter. And I understood why. But a lot of times they would come up to me right before we went on stage and tell me. It was always like, why are you telling me this and that? I don't want to. Before I go out there, and I've blown up a couple times at them for talking to me about money, about this or that. Like, why bring it up right before we go do what we do? And so it has happened.
Right.
The guys that I have on stage now, some of them for 31 years, 26, 22, that does not happen. So it took a long time for me to find the guys that we could communicate with, that they could communicate with. And even so, there's still a little bit of, brotherhood fight going on, because it's going to happen in a marriage. It's going to happen. And so I'm always on point, and not on point, first of all, on notice. I'm always on notice that they're not always going to get along perfectly. And I got to be the guy, because I'm not around them all the time. And they're around each other all the time when we're in work mode. I've got to understand that. And then I've got to step in and make sure that that everybody is feeling the love and everybody's okay, and that we're all living under one big beautiful rainbow. So a lot of times I do have.
You don't want to mutiny. Yeah.
No. I've seen the mutiny. I've seen the mutiny in our business. It exists. So yeah, I've also seen a lot of things in school systems and other facets of life on the sporting field, where coaches have tolerated stuff that's affected the entire outcome of your year, and it really affected a lot of kids being able to enjoy their environment. So, So what do you do there, leader? How do you, at some point you're dealing with all these personalities. A lot of leaders aren't built to handle confrontation.
You put your finger exactly on it. Mike, go.
Yeah.
Confrontation is the thing.
I don't think there's any question that when you avoid confrontation, that is only going to fester and lead to worse things. There's no question about that. But one thing I would say is that, and Randy, you talk about culture, and we've talked about this on this show before. There's also that lower foundation of culture called community. Yes. And this idea of community as a leader, are we creating an environment where we're encouraging listening, we're encouraging communication, we're encouraging empathy, we're listening with the ear of our heart? You guys have heard me say that ad nauseum, the first line out of the Rule of Benedict. We talk about this idea of community versus culture. It's really the idea that we're creating an environment that allows culture to happen. We're really creating a place. As a leader, we're not tolerating, we're accepting the way the norm has been developed, established throughout the organization. We've created that environment of empathy and compassion and listening and all of those things in order so that we don't have to tolerate some of the things that are happening. So, and I know, Randy, you've got a couple of thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things we've talked about before is this idea that really good cultural work comes from the sides. It's not about top down, but this is like on the team, you would never imagine doing something differently because you don't want to disappoint the person to your left or right on the team, right? So that's the
Right.
power of culture that you're hitting at, Mike, and it is fantastic. But there's a huge amount of science that has gone into this because it's such a pervasive thing. This happens all the time. And they actually have a name for this. They call it an FTA, a face-threatening act. And so a face-threatening act is when I have to go to Mike and I have to say, Mike, I don't think that your lasagna was as good as it was last year. That is a face-threatening act because Mike lives to make that lasagna. It is a part of who he thinks about for himself. And if I come at him over his lasagna, he takes that as a threat to him, to his being. And so the question becomes, how do we do FTAs? How does a leader, you have to have that capacity. And the other thing we know is that there is a chunk, I'm going to make this number up, but I think it's pretty close, about 20% of people who have no problem with face-threatening acts. They're more than willing to go, Mike, you know what? I didn't think it was as good as it was last year because I thought you used too much sauce or blah, blah, blah. And they're done. They're just going to lay it right out there.
Why do those people feel the need to do that? And why do they exist is what I want to know. I mean, like, it blows my mind. The negative, they thrive on telling somebody something negative.
Yes.
Right.
So what's going on in their mind is that they believe that's what communication is for. They think communication is working if they have a thought and it comes out of their mouth. That's it. They're not in an empathetic situation. They're not worried about compassion. They're thinking that, I'm communicating successfully because I just said it. So I did a speech. I'll never forget it. It was at Oregon Health Sciences University. And this guy comes up to me after the presentation. He goes, hey, so you have a PhD in communication? I said, yeah. And he said, well, how hard could that be? And I just kind of tilted my head and he goes, watch, you're an idiot. See, I just communicated. That wasn't so hard, was it? And then he walked off. I was like, well, there you go. Hey, I'm just going to, right. I mean, this idea of FTA though is pervasive. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish. I won't forget.
Okay. Well, where I'm headed to is that a leader's style is often built around how they handle the need to offer criticism to people. One of the things I like to do with new hires is say, you need to raise your hand and say, I want negative criticism. I want you to tell me what I'm doing wrong. If I have spinach in my teeth, I want you to tell me. If my fly is down, tell me. Don't go, his fly is down. Nobody's going to tell him that. No, tell me. You've got to create that into the culture because I am not good at FTAs. I don't want to go say negative things to people, but I really love it when somebody says, okay, well, thanks for the good compliments. What can I do better? Okay. When you make yourself available to it. But I'm going to tell a real quick story and then we'll go on. I had a professor named Lawrence Rosenfeld at Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, did my master's there. And Lawrence was an amazing guy. And he went off on a rant that I just loved. You guys remember S&H green stamps, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You remember them?
Yeah, my mom collected them all the time.
Yeah, the kids don't know what they are anymore. But back in the day, usually when you got gas or something like that, or you went to the grocery store, it would print out a strip of these little stamps. And then you would put the stamps into a book. And then they had these centers around the country where you could walk in. They were about the size of a 7-Eleven. And they had toasters and ukuleles and all kind of just crazy stuff. And you could trade your books in of stamps to get whatever prize you want. And these were green stamps. And so here's the story Rosenfeld tells. He says, well, it turns out that there are people in your life that don't like conflict. And so what they do is they see Azar didn't pick up his socks that day. And so it's not enough to get upset with him about it. So I'm not going to get upset with you. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take a brown stamp and I'm going to put it in a book. And then, the next week, well, Azar didn't do this. He said he was going to clean up the kitchen. He didn't do this. And so now he's going to, and Azar didn't pick me up at the airport. He said he was gonna. So that's a whole, remember you could get the big stamp. It would be like a whole page, so you could put that in there. And then one day you're just driving along.
Azar knows none of this, right?
Azar is just living his life. And then all of a sudden, this person now has 3 full books. And then you come in and you say, I'm sorry I was late. I had to just get here. And the person goes nuclear. I'm cashing in all my books right now. So now I'm justified. You just crossed the line for me to be justified for why I'm so pissed off at you. And now I can have righteous anger and I can throw myself around the room. And you're just standing there going, what?
I never knew anything
I was
about it.
less than 5 minutes late. Right, right. And so this brown stamp thing is a real thing. And the reason this when he said this in the lecture hall, I was like, oh, dude, you're talking about me. I am that guy, because I got a whole library of brown stamp books that I'm keeping on people. And I realized in that moment how screwed up that was, how much energy I was putting into that keeping score kind of thing, and how it is a terrible way to manage conflict in any relationship. But I leave that for you. So FTAs, everybody's got to deal with them, but don't keep the stamps.
Don't leave the building just yet, Randy. How did you reconform your mind or conform yourself moving forward?
I'm still working on it, because what I figured out is, like, one of the things I do is, if I have a leadership relationship with a person, I let them know early on that they have to demonstrate the capability to deal with criticism. Because if you can't, then we're not going to work together well, because it's not my nature to come and attack you about things. Or even what I want to be able to do is be nitpicky, but not have you feel like it's nitpicky. So yeah, you did a really good job on the document, but you know what? You left out some details, or this needs to be fixed, or if we had formatted it better, or whatever it is. And that the person should go, wow, thank you. That helped me to get across the finish line, or that's going to make it that much better. But so many times people just go, oh, you hate it. And I cooked, we all cook. And so you cook all day and then you serve it to somebody and they go, huh? You're like,
oh, yeah.
Well,
you hate my cooking.
You hate my cooking. I'm never going to cook this again. I hope, this is your last lasagna in your life, my friend.
Yeah. Don't be messing with Mike's lasagna, first of all. Second of all, listen, I want to say this. So I have dealt, and I still deal with, at times, someone that comes into your circle of trust, your people, and they're toxic, and they're affecting the flow of everyone, and you know it, but you're trying to be empathetic, and you're trying to understand, okay, why is it? But it happens over and over and over. Most of the time in my life, I've been too tolerant with folks like this, but they exist.
Yep, me too.
And for some reason, just when you think that person's moved on to another planet, another person just wearing different clothes and a different body shell does the same thing, and it becomes a detrimental in a way. So how do you handle the toxicity in an individual that shouldn't have anything to do with what you're doing, but somehow has worked themselves into being friends with people that you're around in your workplace, or, having their ear, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
Sure. The beauty of it is St. Benedict talked about this several different places in the rule. And one of the things that he said is, hey, you give them 3 chances. If they don't get through 3 chances, then you amputate. And, he didn't hold any punches. He said, obviously, we correct them once, we give them the opportunity, we correct them twice, we give them the opportunity. But the third time, if they haven't taken that opportunity, then you know what? Get rid of them. Get them out of the equation. And I think that sometimes as leaders, we have a tendency, just like you said, Steve, we have a tendency to tolerate this stuff over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so many times we get caught in a situation where, because we're so engaged in it, we don't understand the detrimental effects that it's having on the other people that are around us.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important to understand that idea is, and the other thing, and Randy, you're talking about this FTAs, one of the things that I encourage clients to do when I work with them, especially when they're dealing with problems or issues that, it's pretty obvious that that one or a person or a team or something created the problem, rather than going to them and lambasting them on the fact that you created this problem. The other way to look at it is you go to them and say, okay, here's where we're at. Here's the issue. Tell me how you're going to fix it. Tell me how you're going to do it differently. You put the ball in their court. You turn the table on them and allow them to give the input back to you, rather than you dictating to them, this is what's going to happen, and all this kind of stuff. It changes the dynamic.
It's a great point. And you'll often hear amazing things happen where that person will hear that and they'll say, well, I would be happy to do it right if I got the stuff 4 hours earlier and I was able to do it right. But because it's coming in at the last minute every time, there's no way I can. okay, so now we begin to see that
Right.
the work process is what's causing some of
Yep.
these problems, and they didn't
Yeah.
feel empowered to say anything to the person
Right.
who was upstream from them, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
Communication.
I
yeah.
think as leaders, we have a tendency many times to have we're going to have all the answers,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and we're going to figure out what the best way is to fix this, you know. But when we allow them to figure out what the answers are and they let them develop the solutions and let them solve the problem, now we create a whole different environment than us dictating down to them, this is what you're going to do.
And that
Can I ask?
person becomes a potential for catalytic change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask you guys something. Can a year go by in the workplace with all the personalities and the things that people go through in their own personal lives, and they have to come to work and they have to somehow let those things go, and you deal with what's in front of you and the family you have at work. Does it ever get perfect?
I don't think so. I
Well,
mean,
it just doesn't,
do
does it?
human beings ever get perfect?
No.
No. That's this is
Yeah, I
constant.
mean,
This is
you know,
constant.
We do
as
have to have
human
grace.
beings, we're never going to be perfect.
There
What?
has to be grace. There has to be
Yeah.
tolerance
Yeah.
Yep.
at some level. But those lines of what is tolerant and what is not is very clear. So, when our girls were young, 15, 14, 16, we were pretty tolerant about hair. You want to do something to your hair? Do something to your hair. There were some things we were not tolerant about, in terms of no,
Yeah.
because anything that's going to be permanent or whatever, no, no. So we had areas where there was tolerance and areas where there's not tolerance. And the same thing is, you want to see something that'll get an organization screwed up in a second. 2 words: dress code. Oh my goodness. You can blow up something in 1 second, and you'll go from, hey, I don't think we ought to do this when we go to events. Ah, well, you're Mr. Rich Guy because you can afford these things. And I had a person and it was fantastic. She came to me and she said, do you understand that women spend an executive woman is going to spend close to $15,000 a year on her wardrobe. How much are you spending on your wardrobe, Mr. Man wearing a hoodie?
Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on, you
Yeah.
know? So it ain't nothing. It ain't nothing. So you
I,
just said dress code, and all of a sudden now they want to have you walk the plank.
Yeah.
I've got a great story with the whole tolerance thing. Anne's middle child, her daughter, likes to get tattoos occasionally. Okay. So and Anne, ever since they were little kids, said no tattoos, you know. So then she made a deal with him. She said, all right, you can get a tattoo, but I'm going to tell you this right now. If when you go to get married, I can see that tattoo anywhere that wedding dress isn't covering, I will not pay for your wedding.
Oh, wow.
And so sure enough, this middle daughter, you know, she had strategically placed tattoos where you weren't going to see it, you know, when that wedding dress went on. But it was interesting because the minute she got married, 2 weeks later, she went and got one where you could see
Hey,
it. So,
that is so funny. My mom growing up would tolerate only certain things and with me and with all our kids, but I think she was pointing mostly at me because I pushed the envelopes a little bit. Um, I, I guess, and what I've always said, I guess I got it from her. I don't put anything on my body I can't take off at night. So, I just don't want any painting on me. I don't want no stains. And so, but I did get my last year in college. We were on spring break at Key West, and I'm pretty sure the group that was one of the girls, one of my buddy's girlfriends, I had bought these big three dangling crosses in each ear. And she had them. And I don't know if she pushed a beer bottle up. All I know is she went by accident up here. She went in the wrong way because she was drinking. And all of a sudden, Austin, I don't think that's the right hole. That didn't feel right. Anyway, so long story short, she finally got them in. They dropped on the ground and all the people dancing and all that. No telling how healthy that was for my earlobe. My mom finds out. I come home when we drive home. I come home and somehow my mom finds out like 2 days later. And all I got was a call saying, you don't come home until the holes are totally healed up. I couldn't come home till they healed up. That's no earrings, right? That's no earrings. But it's funny because I used to wear bands all the time. So my mom wouldn't tolerate all that stuff. And I think a lot of that carried on. But my filmmaker son's got a tattoo on his arm, and my doctor son's got no tattoos. And my daughter chef has one that says she ain't Rosedale, which is my handwriting, because she wanted to get that on her thing. And so I said, why don't you stop there? Okay, just stop there. So you want to as a dad, but then they're at a point where they're on their own pretty much, but
Right.
not quite.
Right.
And so as long as they're
Right.
not quite on their own, I still have a little bit of say, you know?
Yeah. I think that's kind of where my wife was at. Once you're married,
Yeah. Yeah.
I lose all opportunity.
Well, tattoos can be a pretty bad idea a lot of times. You
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
so
And the only one I've
Well,
ever
the interesting
considered.
thing about it is they don't understand what it's going to look like when you're 80.
no,
Well,
exactly.
there was I think it was from the movie, I can't remember the guy's name who was in the movie Jackass. I don't remember the fella's name, but the guy who started that whole thing. And apparently he has a tattoo that I had actually considered getting. And that is, he has the words, your name, those two words tattooed on his butt. And he did that so that you could sit in a bar and I could look at Mike and I'd say, "What's your name, Mike?" $10 says I've got your name tattooed on my butt.
That's pretty good.
Now that sounded like a good, and then I'd have, of course, then you'd
Great
have
way
to show, you'd have to demonstrate that
Yeah.
in fact that was the case. But it was a good bar trick that would work all the time. So that's the only one I thought, huh, that one sounds that one
It's
sounds
an
pretty good.
tolerate tattoos and people that don't. But
Yeah.
tattoos, we're seeing, my grandfather, he had them, it was on his arm and this and that, and my other
Right.
grandfather didn't, and it was a time. But now more than ever, we're seeing a lot of kids get tattoos, and then they're doing the sleeves,
Yeah.
they're doing it, and it's almost like it never ends.
Yeah.
And I wonder where all of that. Hey, the old liquor store where I found my way making music is a tattoo parlor now. So that building.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was one of
That's
those things.
interesting. Yeah, I have never had an itch. I've never had a desire for one, really.
Yeah. I haven't either.
And yeah, it's an interesting thing. But I think that one of the things that, as we talk about what leaders tolerate, one of my favorite stories was a financial institution up in the Portland market, and a lovely man was running the shop there for years, and he had a very strict no visible tattoo policy in the financial institution, right? And we had a board meeting one night, and I came in and sat down, and there was this heated conversation going on. And I hear the guy saying, "I am sick to death of coming into my branches and seeing it look like an emergency room." And I thought, what? And he says, I walk in there and everybody's got bandages. They got bandages on their arm. They got bandages around their neck. They got bandages on their head. They got bandages because they would bandage where the tattoo was so that they could have the job. And he said, it looks like a war zone, he said. And so I thought that was pretty funny. And then this is what turned the tables, though. The marketing director, very smart woman, she goes and she does videos of the people that they are, of customers in this marketplace they're serving. And the customers talking about what they like and what they don't like and so forth. And she shows that like 75% of those customers were heavily tattooed customers. Everybody in this area in Portland has tattoos. And so her point,
you're right.
Yeah.
I've seen a bunch.
Yeah. So her point was, not only are they not going to be upset if the person is working with a tattoo, they're going to probably bond with that person because they have a tattoo more. They're going to have a better sense of relationship. And that's what it took for that boss to finally say, okay, I'm going to back off of that. I'm not going to make that the line in the sand anymore. Because the whole world, the community is, to Mike's earlier point, the community was the foundation of culture, and that community said, "Hey, tattoos are a big part of what we do here." So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't. When I see somebody with a bunch of tattoos, I don't even notice it anymore. It's just part of them. Nor do I point fingers at all. I get that they do that. I just don't. Is all. So it's it doesn't affect me either way as far as that part of it, but it's just something I just decided I don't want to do it. If I can't take it off
So
at night,
one of the ways that people deal with FTAs is they will also go to rules and roles. I shouldn't have to tell you this because we have a rule about blah, 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 or it's your role to do it this way and you're not doing it that way. So I'm not going to come at you because you did a crappy job on this report, but I'm going to come at you because you're not meeting your role obligations. And so this rules and roles thing, people will tell you who they are in 1 second, and I can hear it. Oh, they're a rules and roles person. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. And every organization needs a good rules and roles person to keep us all out of prison, right? That's a good thing. But they can also, of course, be mind-bendingly frustrating because they're the ones that are walking around handing out the brown stamps in real time. Oh, you dropped your socks. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
What
No,
happens when
go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Well, I think the other piece, the other side of of an FTA is the lack of awareness that so many leaders have, or lack of presence that they have. They've got their head stuck in the sand and they're not really paying any attention, or they've got so much on their plate that they're not paying attention to the entire organization. And I don't care whether that's 3 employees or 3,000 employees. One of the most important aspects of leadership, and again, I think it's understanding that leadership should have to take a 30,000-foot view. And the only way that you can do that, I love the term management by wandering around, where you're just connecting with people. You're just figuring out what's going on as you wander around your organization. And when I talk to leaders about how you do that, it's really having that presence. And it's not walking around and like Big Brother watching over your shoulder. It's walking around and connecting with people.
Mhm.
It's communicating with people. It's having conversations about not just what's going on at work, but what's going on in their lives. It's showing people that you matter. And when you show people that you matter, a lot of times the tolerance aspect of it takes care of itself, because they understand the culture, they understand what you're trying to do as the leader, and therefore they fall in line with what it is the organization is trying to accomplish. So I think that's the other aspect, is that as a leader, we have to be present. We have to really be aware of what's going on throughout the whole organization in order to be able to tolerate some things and not tolerate other things.
Where does it cross the line? For me, when it crosses the line into your core and your values and those things that you sort of, that matter to you so much, ethics and all that. When it goes there, for me, it's an easy decision. But
Sure.
I've gone
Right.
to the end of the plank, on the ship, and I've looked down, and until you cross that line or been on that tightrope, but when it gets there, then the decision becomes like, well, I'm going to take care of that. Where does
Right.
where does being tolerant and values collide, where it makes a big difference in the work?
Well,
I
I mean,
think I think
you're saying it. No, I'm just
What if
saying it. He's saying it. It's
I
the
want to ask
bottom line. It's the bottom line.
right.
you got it, but what if things are really working? Okay, so I want to load this question a little bit for you. What if things are
Mhm.
really, as far as business wise, are going really well, but
Oh,
this is
sure.
internally
Happens all the
happening?
time.
So continue with that thought.
So you see the guy who is selling more than anybody else, and then you go and you say, "Wow, you're selling more than anybody else," and then you realize that this person is lying to the customers. Well, yeah, you've got 5 new customers, but you've told them things that are not true, and now
Yeah.
we're on the hook to deliver something we can't
Right.
deliver. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, you're selling more, but you're misrepresenting who we are and what we do. So you've actually caused us a huge problem. And so once you find out that the person is lying, they're gone. That's it. I mean, and this is this bottom line kind of thing. And when people go on first dates or second dates, what they're really doing, the first thing they're doing is they're saying, is this an appropriate person for me? Do I feel like they are correct? That we're sort of balanced. The
Mhm.
second thing they're doing, and it's equally as important, is are they doing any bottom line behaviors? It might be, for my daughters, it was anybody who smoked anything, cigarettes, you're done, gone. You can go smoke. I don't care. I'll have you as a work colleague, but I'm not going to be in a relationship with you. Or anybody who uses disparaging words about other races. That's not happening, right? So they're listening for these little things where if there's even a hint of that stuff, it's game over. And
Yeah.
so it's actually, if you've been in a position as a leader where you've got a person you like and they're doing good work and something has gone sideways and you're like, oh my God, this person's been here for 30 years or 25 years and they're wonderful people and they bring the best dish to the potluck ever and they have nice kids and I don't want to have to fire this person. Then you found out, but he embezzled
Yeah.
Oh
$5,000
yeah.
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 but he did this terrible thing. And I always don't you feel a relief, right? So you knew something was off, you knew something was wrong, but it was like, oh, now that I know that line is crossed, okay, now I feel
Right. I
we
can do
can
it. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can do that. We
Yeah.
can pull that trigger very quickly.
And I think the other aspect And this idea of presence, I think when leaders are present, when they're engaged with their people, it allows you for early detection and early correction.
Yeah, yeah.
Is in that when you nip that in the bud right at the beginning and you don't let that continue to happen and continue to grow, then you put yourself in a position where you don't have to, walk off the end of the plank, like you said, Steve.
Right.
Right.
You know, you've created some of that on the front end. You've detected it, you've corrected it, you've done what you need to do with that employee or that, person, whoever it is. And then it allows you to sort of do this as you go versus waiting for something big to happen and
Mhm.
then trying to fix it at that point. But again, you can't do that if you don't know what's going on. You
Right.
can't do that if you're not present with the people in your organization, with the things that are happening in your organization. And I can't tell you, there are so many leaders that I've worked with that don't get that until you start to talk to them about this is what's happening, this is what I'm seeing. You're getting the feedback loop from, all of the people that are reporting to this leader and realizing that this has been going on for quite a while simply
Right.
because they've tolerated some of these behaviors.
That's
So
it.
some of the people that work with me, obviously sort of, if I'm the umbrella, they're working sort of under the umbrella. They all have different responsibilities that I tell them that they're in charge, and took
Yep.
a long time for me to realize I need to let them be in charge. But
Yeah.
sometimes they're a little more fiery. They're a little bit more quick to react. They get a little upset faster and all this. And it's just in their nature. And there's nothing wrong with it. But all I'll say is they go, I always want to get rid of that person that hadn't shown, that had been late on their phone. We've told them 6 times and all this stuff and the things that you're not supposed to do and all that. And I'll go, okay, here's all I'm saying. Have you talked to them yet? Have you even talked to them? No. Have you talked to them? Yes. Okay. How many times have you multiple times? Yes. Okay. Then I'll go, just make sure that you don't put yourself in a predicament that leaves you stranded, shorthanded, and it could affect everything that we're doing that day or that week or that month. So make sure that you're covered if that happens, but
Right.
also make sure you've communicated and given them an opportunity. And then that
Right.
either a yes or a no, or I don't know. So anyways, helped us keep people that are still around because nobody was communicating and they were, breaking some little rules and stuff, but they just needed to be told once. Now there are some that had needed to be told 4 times. And then, like you said, that just didn't work out. So I think that
Yeah.
you're sort of, it makes a lot of
I think
sense when
that's a
you,
good
And
point. This idea that succession and having that B team ready is always a good idea for leadership, no matter what.
right.
Because people are going to have a bad day, or they're going to win a lottery, or they're whatever. They're going to go somewhere and not be there. So a B team is, and what I think you're hitting at, Steve, is a very powerful piece. And that is, if I know that there's 2 people that could step into my job tomorrow, and I know them, and maybe even I'm training them, then that should encourage me to go to the next level, right? But it also tells me that I am expendable at that point. I could get shot out of a cannon and the business would not suffer at all. And in the SEAL teams, they say 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So
I
if
love that.
if somebody goes to a battlefield medicine camp and they learn some things and they come back from their 6-week thing, the lieutenant will say, welcome back, Azar. It's good to see you finally. Hey, I was doing this training. Yeah, whatever. I think you're garbage to me. You're now a problem because you're the only person who knows this stuff. So now you're a problem on the team. You think you're all that in a bag of chips, don't you, Azar? So here's what I'm going to do. You and Ferrell are going to spend the next 3 days. And if Ferrell can't pass the same test you just passed, your
Wow.
butt is
Come
grass.
on, Mike.
So now you two, and now what do I have? Now I have 2 people who know battlefield medicine. And how did you had to teach Ferrell, right? So now you're going to have to go back through all that stuff. And boy, do you learn something when you teach it.
Right.
You may have thought you knew it, and then you teach it and go, holy crap, now I really know it.
Another level.
So it's this brilliance in that 2 is 1, 1 is none thing. And I think that you really put your finger on it, Steve. That might solve a problem if people feel like, well, what are they going to do? Fire me? I'm the only person that can
Right.
make this machine run. So screw them.
Right.
And that is
right.
a real strategic problem in your organization.
I think the other aspect to that too is helping them understand how to have that conversation. So many times, you go to them and say, well, have you talked to him? Well, no, I haven't, or yes, I have. Well, rather than just saying that, the next step is saying, what did you say to him? You
Right.
know, and if you didn't say anything to him, here's what you might want to consider. Here's the
Mhm.
conversation that you might want to have. And again, any time that you can turn the tables and put the onus on them to say, okay, we've been telling you, but you're not supposed to be on your phone. You're on your phone all the time. Now, if you're in my shoes, what would you do? You turn the tables on them to say,
Nice.
gee, oh man, I guess probably I would tell myself not to be on the damn phone, allowing them to have that conversation. But the thing about it is we assume that people know how to have that conversation, but in many cases they don't. And so anytime that we can help them have that conversation with whoever it is they need to have it with, I think
Mm.
that as a
I,
leader,
I have a,
we're
I have a question
giving them,
for Benedictine thinking. Okay.
yeah,
So here we go. So
Yeah.
now you say, what would you do for somebody who's on their phone and they're not supposed to? And then the person goes, things at home are just not so good. And so I was looking at my phone because I was worried about my daughter who was taking a test or doing a thing.
I'm a
And
sucker,
I
sucker for
man. And so and we know there's a high probability they're not lying, that there really
that.
is some kind of nightmare crisis thing going on at home. And so what do you do with that? Because that's where Steve, I'm with you. I'm a total
I'm immediately forgiving. I'm telling you, that hits me hard.
solve the
I
problem.
listen with the ear in my heart.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I'm compassionate, I'm empathetic. Now, obviously, I would want to know more detail. So what's going on? Is there something that we can do to help you? And again, this is making people feel like they matter.
That's
Because if
nice.
that's the issue, if that's the reason that they're on the phone all the time, then the only way that you're going to get anything out of them that's worthwhile is to figure out how to help them solve that problem if you can. Now,
Yeah.
certainly in some cases you can't, but I think that when that's the response back, the last thing that you want to say is, well, sorry, I don't really care. We've got a business to run here, and either you get off the phone or we'll find somebody else.
Yeah, no, I can't.
That's a very typical response from a leader. And I
Absolutely.
think anything that we can listen with the ear of our heart and say, okay, I'm going to be compassionate, I'm going to be empathetic. Is there something that we can help you with here? Is there some way that we can do that allows you to still do your job so that you can support the things that we need to have, but we also want to make sure that you're okay,
I love that. I
and
love take
really
that means
having that conversation.
you're truly showing that you care as a leader in that situation. You're not
Exactly.
only going like, "I'm sorry, okay, don't do it again, it's okay." You're wanting to go the extra mile and find out what can we do, what's going on. Like, that is a beautiful thing,
Exactly.
and talking about the trust that you're gaining, right, at that point. That's
Exactly.
awesome. Ear of your heart, man, that's it.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
buy that, but I can tell you what, there's about 39 people listening to this right now who are going, that's a bunch of crap because you just got played, man. That's what happened. It was like, oh,
You
I
won't
did
be
this thing. It
played,
was terrible.
if it happens again and again and again and again,
There you
you're
go. The rule
Right.
of
There you
three.
go. That's
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
3 times and you amputate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you've done it like Mike just said, and you've shown true compassion, concern, care, and then it happens again, and you do it again, and then they do it again, then they're not concerned enough about you or
Yeah.
everybody around.
Right.
That's when you got to look at the hard facts and the hard
That's
reality.
when you've got to amputate,
Yeah.
So it's
All
funny. It's
right,
funny
fellas.
you say
What?
that because I sent a gift to a CEO some years ago who was the nicest guy in the world. And I sent him for Christmas a samurai sword. And he opens it up and he says, why did you send me this? And I said, well, there was a little story attached to it that the samurai walked around with these things. And once the blade was drawn, things were going to happen. Right. So the last thing you wanted to see was the samurai draw the blade. And that was my message to him was and he hung it in his office behind his desk after that. And it was like, I never want to use it, but I will. And I can if I need to. And
Yep.
it gave him the courage to feel like, okay, there are times when the amputation thing is going to happen, even though nobody's going to be happy about it, including me. But there you go.
All right,
Just a truth.
fellas. We've run the course of time here. So Steve, bring us home.
Man, a lot of pressure here. Tolerance, man. What do you tolerate in your work culture, in your life? How important is it that you communicate beyond words. I mean, beyond means you have got to take the time to communicate and build these relationships and understand what's going on in folks' lives when they're obviously it's impossible to leave everything at home, and listen with the ear of your heart. Once again, so important. But then again, don't get run over
Right.
at the expense not only of you, but the expense of the entire team that is trusting you to make sure that that everyone's treated fairly and that we're successful together at the end of the day. So you sort of walk a tightrope between the two, and you hope that you can continue to listen with the ear of the heart, but at some time make some tough decisions that affect all of you rather than just one of you.
And we'll talk about
Absolutely.
that when we get our resonance tattoos. How's that?
Yeah. Yeah. Does that mean you have to get a tattoo of me on your bodies? Is that what that's it? Right. Well, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't wish that on any of you guys. I wouldn't even let you guys do a fake one and put it up. How about that? No, I appreciate it. Well, everybody can check us out. Mike the Monk Guy Ferrell, Randy Harrington. You guys make my day, and you actually help me get through a lot of things that I'm constantly going
this was helpful for me today too. It was good stuff.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. ResonanceLeader.com. Don't forget, you can bring the three of us into a conference. We've all done plenty of speaking engagements. I've done one conference with Randy back in the day, but part of this whole mission is to bring the three of us in, and then we're going to finish writing a song with you, and it's going to celebrate you and your workplace, and it'll be a conference you've never seen. So we're always available. Well, we're sometimes available. We're busy. We're busy.
You can connect with us on the ResonanceLeader.com website. If it's interest for you, then we'll reach out to you and have a conversation.
And we'll check our schedules. No, that's too funny. We're also very humorous at times. Yeah. Later on,
or so we think.
We think we're fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, boys, that'll wrap it up. Until next time, thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next Resonance podcast episode.
Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at ResonanceLeader.com.